The Switch is on Battle Line podcast here with a special annex episode because we have some breaking news as we're recording this, and that is that
Yeah.
Chinese Russian military planes have been intercepted near Alaska. There's been many articles written about this, of course. This one in particular is from ABC News. They did a pretty good job reporting just the facts here.
Yeah,
So I'll
very
read
good.
some of this to you guys. U.S. and Canadian fighter jets intercepted 4 Russian and Chinese bombers that were flying in international airspace near Alaska on Wednesday, officials said. This marked the first time that Chinese military aircraft had been intercepted in that area. North American Aerospace Defense Command, which is NORAD, said in the statement that it had detected, tracked, and intercepted 2 Russian Tu-95 and 2 PRC, People's Republic of China, H-6 military aircraft operating in the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone, ADIZ, on July 24th, 2024, of course. NORAD said that American and Canadian fighter jets conducted the intercept and noted that the Russian and Chinese remained in international airspace and did not enter American or Canadian airspace. I'm just skimming through here. I highlighted parts that you should know, but you could read the rest on ABC. But this is notable because it's the first intercept of Chinese military
China.
aircraft near
Yeah.
Alaska. It's stuff that has been flown in the airspace, but not near Alaska from China. NORAD stressed that the flight is not seen as a threat and that it will continue to monitor activity near North America and meet presence with presence. And then Kathleen Hicks, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, the last statement I'll mention here, she says, more troubling. We've seen growing cooperation between the PRC, the People's Republic of China, and Russia in the Arctic. Commercially, with the PRC being a major funder of Russian energy exploration in the Arctic, and increasingly militarily with Russia and China conducting joint exercises off the coast of Alaska. Now, I sent this to you just a couple of hours ago. I didn't even know this. Look, I don't follow everything going on. Stuff comes on my radar and doesn't, but you made me aware that this may be a retaliation.
And for everybody knows, this is the first time with China, but Russia has been doing this for many, many years. That whole airspace is always contested. And yeah, a few days earlier, Russia reported that U.S. bombers had flown into near Russian airspace and they intercepted them. So I don't want to read too much into this. I don't want to. I think Catherine Hicks's statement, I think she's probably saying what she has to say, but does she necessarily feel like it's becoming a? No, I mean, what do you expect? China and Russia are they're frenemies. I mean, they're the Axis powers, and we have the Allied powers, which we've had since World War One, World War Two. Not saying it's Russia and China, but you have sides that come together, and I don't think this is something that needs to be worried about at this point because Russian bombers were with the Chinese bomber. Was it an exercise? Of course, it's an exercise. Everything you do in the military is an exercise. At some point, you're learning. But I think it's more of an FU. It's more of okay, America, you want it. Well, guess what we're going to do, and we're going to put it right back at you. Now that can lead to problems because now it's two bullies calling each other's bluffs that could turn into something ugly, or it could just go the way of the dodo and be all right. Like, okay, just go back to our corners. And I hope it goes that route. But yeah, it's something. Of course, the military, they responded like they should. The jets responded. That's the protocol. So that's a good thing, man. But you can't stop. We can't stop China and Russia from working together when they see the U.S. as a threat against both of them. And of course, even with the military, our military, how it is, it's not as strong as it once was. At this point in time, we're still stronger than they are. We still are. We are. And so, brother, I think it more or less was more of a big finger. It's like big finger than anything else. But yeah, I think the biggest part of that story, though, where people need to pay attention is the warships and the ships coming in there and the natural resources. That's a bigger deal to me, a bigger story than the bombers, because again, that's been happening, dude, since the Reagan era. I mean, we're Russian fighters, but the Chinese one, that's what makes it different. And who knows, dude? With everything going on right now, you know how the media is. Let's smoke and mirrors. Let's show the light over here so people aren't paying attention to the Secret Service and the failed
Well,
assassination attempt.
I don't know if I would say that. I mean, they're reporting on all this. They're reporting on all this. I think this just came across our radar, and I was like, it's a national security issue. I
Gotcha.
mean, what am I could print an article from ABC on the Secret Service, but what could I really say that hasn't been
Yeah,
said? You
no,
know,
you're I'm just saying maybe is this why this is a story now because this happens on a regular basis, but the Chinese
in
uh
Alaska's
in
space, yeah,
Alaska that I mean that's what makes it new. I again I don't want to jump to conclusions and oh shit we're World War III. I don't want to go that route. But the military, on a positive side, the jets and our military, our fighter jets did what they needed to do. But I also think but what I say, but I think we kind of started it by flying our bombers to their space first. What would we do? I mean, wouldn't we do the same thing? I mean,
yeah.
probably. So
I just think when these stories come up, more and more people, just because of what's going on in the news
yeah,
cycle, are like, man, are we going to get involved in this war with Russia? Because it seems more and more hostile. I didn't even watch the full Biden address because I was at the gym and then I was watching the Mets kick the Yankees' ass, which is more important than watching the Biden address. But the one thing, the one thing Biden said though that I think is troubling because Biden has said this over and over and over again, and he's made this a point, and I think anybody who's watched the news cycle will agree with me, is that during this speech of him dropping out of the race, he said, "We're expanding NATO. I'm expanding NATO." And it's like, I don't
yeah,
think that that's so good. I think that
yeah.
the whole reason that Russia is hostile to the US right now, and you guys could look back that every president, Trump, I know, got attacked for being, buddy or whatever with Putin, but pretty much you could look back. George W. Bush invited
Yeah,
Putin to his house. Obama
yeah,
praised Putin for a whole bunch of things. So everybody had a pretty good relationship with Putin in recent American history. And his whole animosity with Ukraine has been like, I don't want them as a part of NATO. I think that's an act of war against me. And so when I do see the current president on TV, and actually Terry mentions it in the episode that we're about to post with Terry Shapert, but Kamala Harris, talking about expanding NATO
yeah,
with Ukraine prior to all this going on. I do think that that's kind of troubling. So
yeah,
when I see an article like this, and it's just my person, and look, we have listeners who are in special ops in Ukraine, and one guy in particular who lost his leg. I don't know
yeah.
if he died, honestly, because I haven't heard from him since, and he was trying
Yeah,
to
that's true. That's
go.
true.
I
Yeah,
sure hope that's not the case, but when it's someone who's corresponding with you regularly on Instagram, you start to think the worst, that all of a sudden it's been a month or so, and after this guy lost his legs, well, leg or legs, I don't remember, you don't hear from him. So I mean, it's a crazy situation going over there, but the reason I bring this up is that said, and I think you feel the same way. I mean, the billions upon billions that we're sending over there, is this
yeah.
going to then escalate to we're putting boots on the ground? Because I have yet to hear how that would be in the national interest of America. I don't believe it
It
is.
wouldn't be. No, it wouldn't be at all. And him saying those things and expanding NATO is dumb. It's stupid. We don't need to do. Ukraine doesn't need to be part. That's my opinion. They
Yeah, I
don't need
agree.
to be
It's my
part.
opinion too. Yeah,
Do they need to be sovereign? Sure, but you got it. Where their attack was, and hopefully I can get a hold of my buddy that was Juris me that lives in Russia now. And we can get him on the show because I know we'd have a lot to say about that. The area that we went in, that Russia invaded, that was primarily Russian ethnicity, guys, and there's no
that's what
fighting going
Putin has
on.
always maintained. If you guys watched the interview Putin did with Tucker
It
Carlson, that's what he said. And I do think,
is, and
and look,
it
I'm not going
is.
to say that I trust everything Putin says, but at the same time, I feel like if you listen to like the Joe Scarboroughs of the world, they're just constantly repeating this narrative. Putin is Hitler. He's Hitler. We need, and he needs to be stopped, and he's going to take over the whole world. And I haven't really seen the evidence of that.
Well, he couldn't get 30 miles into Ukraine, into Ukraine against ragtag forces. How is he going to take over the world aside from nuclear? But then there's no world to take over. So that's where and I agree with you. And I completely agree with you. Maybe I'm trying to be pessimistic in a way that I don't want to happen what people think might happen. So I'm not going to
Sure.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. And I'm protecting myself because I know what the war can be, and if a nuclear war, well, there's no winners. Everybody's going to lose. But you know, you've got a good point, and there should be an end to this Ukrainian war. And hate me if you want to, I don't think it comes with Ukraine being what it once was. It's not. And we need to get out. We need to remove ourselves from it, and you know, find a diplomatic way to remove ourselves from it. But it's not doing any good. We're not doing anything for our country by being there, in my opinion, at
Yeah.
all. And then being said, on the military side as well, with the planes flying, we do being in the military, we do conduct exercises when I was in that are similar to missions that we may have to do if we have to go to war. So that being said, if that makes you feel any better, they're conducting missions not to prepare to go to war, but if war happens, we have to be ready. So this is what we have to prepare for. So that's why we would take down buildings. We seize airfields. It wasn't now it's different because Rangers were doing it in the US, but we're practicing here because we can't go seize an airfield in Russia. But we would jump into Germany and seize an airfield. You know, we would practice in countries that we could get into. So to me, again, this is an exercise that they're doing because it's their military. They feel threatened. They need to prepare themselves. So if something happens, they know what they need to do, just like we would. But I don't see it as a act, like they're poking the bear, saying, "Okay, we're going
Yeah.
to start something. Just leave us alone." I just see it as well, they're preparing like we would, and that's what the Air Force does. Planes can fly a lot farther than Rangers can walk, so that's what they're going. They're flying and doing their training missions and preparing in an area that is over the history has been full of Russian aircraft trying to butt up to that zone in Alaska with U.S. aircraft intercepting and vice versa. So, yeah, but I can't say I disagree with you either. That is something to be concerned about. Well, yeah, a little bit, but I'm not going to jump off a ledge yet.
No,
Not yet.
no. Yeah, let us know what you guys think. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. And I don't say it often, but people are always wondering, hey, how could I support the show? If you feel so inclined, you
Yeah,
can hit that super thanks button, and you can donate to the show. That goes directly to us. But yeah, as always, we'll have new episodes up every Tuesday, new clips on here, and give us your opinion. Some of you may be more worried than we are. There's definitely some worry there with Russia teaming up with China. But I think Chris and I both agree we do not want to see U.S. boots on the ground. But let
yeah.
us know what you think.